name is Juan Lopez with the Mecca Library, and today I'm here with Margit Chiriaco of Chiriaco Summit, and today we will be discussing her recent reissue of the 1967 novel From Maine to Mecca, written by author Nevada C. Colley. From Maine to Mecca is a work of historical fiction set in the early 1900s in and around Mecca, California, and the developing Coachella Valley. We follow the story of Charlie Brown, a man from Maine who was traveling west as a musician with the Walter Maine Circus. The caravan stops in the city of Walter, later changed to Mecca. After going through an overnight crisis, Charlie leaves the circus and is determined to make something of himself. He battles against internal conflictions of self-doubt and uncertainty, as well as the harsh desert terrain, as he struggles tirelessly to achieve success in the desert. Margit, if you can go into a little bit of depth and let us know who Nevada C. Colley is.
Well, Nevada C. Colley was a friend of my mother's. They were registered nurses together, and she came from Maine. My mother came from Minnesota, and they had other friends here from like other states. It's like a lot of the nurses in those states kind of migrated to California because it was the land of sunshine, the Golden State. And so they were here, and they were in the registry, and they met through the nurses registry, and they became good friends, of course. And they were kind of both, hardy women and ready to take on, struggles. Obviously, Nevada did, and Mecca, as did my mother here. So they were good nurse friends, and they always, throughout the years, they weren't always together. We didn't have phones like we do now. It was a big deal. If we drive through Mecca, from here to Mecca, which is 18 miles, through the Box Canyon, we would probably stop and say hello to them, or stop at a place in Mecca that had delicious milkshakes and stuff. But it was well now, and so Fred had this picture, and it's looking out the back door of their home in Mecca, toward the mountains, and I think that's pretty neat. Pretty neat picture.
So the cover is of Mecca.
It is of Mecca.
Wow, what a beautiful shot.
It isn't just a palm tree. It's a special palm tree out their back door of their house when they lived in Mecca.
Wow.
So I think that's kind of significant and poignant and beautiful, and I think it's just a lovely picture. And he subsequently sent me the original, which I still can't believe, and I love it. I cherish it. So we wanted...
I loved hearing about how much of a central hub Mecca used to be.
Oh God, yes,
how
it really was.
It was just kind of the up and coming town. Can you talk to me a little bit about just what made it so?
I think the railroad. It was definitely the railroad that made it a point. And then they had the post office there, which was, and of course, and then people came, and they actually had a little hotel and everything there for people to stay with on. But the railroad was the main thing that kept the people coming and going, and established it, because it wasn't the cars and the trucks. Mecca, when we were young kids growing up, well, even before that, my parents, and with probably the Colleys and other people, they would get together in Mecca. That was a place to meet, and they would go to the Salton Sea. That was a huge place to go and get together and have parties. And they were in Model A's, remember? And they didn't have our music boxes and all, but somehow somebody'd have a guitar or something. They'd dance. They'd probably have beer, I'm sure, but they would have a good time. And they would meet there, and then they would be in Mecca. Mecca was a hubbub. I mean, the railroad was huge in Mecca. They had the transit, and that was actually the post office. When my dad that would be in the 30s, well, the late 20s and 30s, he and my mother had started going together, and they wrote letters. And she was in Indio, and he was here somewhere. He would be here, or further east, or further west, surveying, and they would get letters daily almost from each other, which is amazing to me. and how they would get to that post office, and they would be stamped Mecca.
Wow.
Mecca. So that would come through. And there was a place in Mecca, the Julians owned the, that was the dad's name. They had a grocery store in Mecca, and it was the one with the arches. And you may have seen that building. And we would go there, and they had, it was always fun to visit them when we go through Mecca. And then, of course, a lot of times we'd go down to Valerie Jean's, too, which is on the road, would be the old 86.
Wow.
And we'd go there and get milkshakes, and that's where John Hilton, the famous artist in the desert. Have you looked him up?
No, John Hilton.
Oh, he was and he would be on some of these parties that they would do down at Mecca, or he would be in Mecca or Valerie Jean's or somewhere, and he was a really, he loved to play music and play the guitar. He even was up here at our store sometimes playing the music. So there was a group of people, probably the nurses and some of these wild people that were working on the aqueduct, you know, like my dad, the surveyors, and just a lot of people that got together, early people in the Coachella Valley, and they would just, like our kids today, they would get together and they would have fun. They would go out and do fun things. So, but probably, maybe not like our kids today. Maybe it was a little different. But they did. They really enjoyed, you know, being in the desert. And, you know, it was hot. It wasn't. And they didn't have air conditioning.
Oh, yeah, not back
They
then.
had those submarines. They had water coolers. My mother said in the hospital they would have to rinse out sheets sometimes and put over patients to keep them cool. And yeah, it was, and I know that I'm pretty sure Nevada experienced some of this too in the Mecca area, because it was a little bit more remote from Indio, where the main hospital was, and the Coachella Valley Hospital were at that time. That, you know, was a little distance to get there, back and forth. And in the early days, my mother talked about having to go with the doctor to Nyland. And they had to use one of those little carts that you push on the road. Have you seen those?
Yeah, I've seen
They had
those.
to push it all the way down there, do surgery, and then I don't know how they got that. She always, and I know that Nevada was exposed to those things too, and when she was down. But she was also a farmer's wife, you know. Her husband was there, and they worked hard. It was not an easy life, I don't think. And he worked for the folks there in Mecca that had the farm.
Yeah, all accounts of this book just kind of point to just very hard living.
It was.
Charlie Brown was a miner.
Yeah.
Up in Eagle Mountain.
Yeah.
And he sold his mine. He became a farmer. He struggled with that. So just
none of it is easy.
All of it is just very, very hard work that should serve as an inspiration to kind of younger generations about.
We're able to persevere and really make good. You know, they actually came out okay. I think that the Collies, maybe he never did really own the ranch, but he continued to work on it, and he was a scrappy kind of a guy, and hard-working guy.
Very, very hardworking. He eventually established an ice plant in Mecca. Can you talk to me a little bit about that and just the significance of, you know, you talked about the heat and there was no AC.
Well, any ice plant was a miracle, you know, for people. And we used to go to Coachella to get the ice for here, and we never. I'm sure in the early days they went to Mecca, but I wasn't born then, so I don't remember that. But that would just be a miracle to have. You know, for things that we take for granted, that it's so easy to come by. You know, the telephone, the running water, the bathrooms, you know, everything, sewer, everything. That we just, it's there. We turn on a faucet, we flush, you know, whatever. But for them, it wasn't always like that. It was a difficult thing for people. It was pioneering, basically pioneering in the desert, and the desert was harsh. It was unforgiving, and a lot of people, you know, succumbed to it. But there was also, and now I think maybe that's the reason that they had such great joy when they got together. I think about this because they really appreciated life.
Mm-hmm.
And it was nothing for them to go and take off in those little Model A's and go up that little highway up to Banning and Beaumont and up to L.A.
Mm-hmm.
They would do that on the.
Mm-hmm.
But Mecca was always fun to visit, and then it changed. Over the years it changed, and Leon came in and put in the grocery and the gas, and then there was a Mexican restaurant. I can't think of the name of it. It was on the corner there, and we used to come down from here and go to it, and it was fun. It was sort of wild. It was really exciting to go there, and but it's growing now. Mecca is changing. It has a roundabout. So
yeah, we got that big bridge coming in. So
Brent gets down here from Portland. He lives in Portland. We're going to come down and see him, and I would definitely want him to come and talk about, because he could really address this. We grew up here.
Mm-hmm.
We saw them, like you would occasionally, and visit. Mother always loved Nevada. It was always Nevada, But then as things go, you grow apart. We went to college. They went to college. They married. We married. Things moved.
Mm-hmm.
You move. But we kind of always sort of stayed in touch. The boys and I did, and after his mother passed and everything. But she was a really, as I said, she was a sturdy, very unique person,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it sort of talks about it in the book too.
Oh yeah, you can kind of get a good sense of just
of what a good person and heart, and that she took on. She took it on and she made it work. Cecilia was they were artists. She was an artist. And she did a lot of stuff with the kids. And she had a beautiful pageant in the Box Canyon at Easter. They would do the pageant. It was fabulous. We used to go to it as kids. And we'd all sit in the dirt out there. And this beautiful pageant would unfold of, Christ carrying the cross. And
wow.
It was really gorgeous. And they were a great part of the Mecca society, so to speak. And, and how Mecca was growing, changing, and they were there during the early days, and it was all part of a group. I think a lot of people got interested in that area because of the ranching, the agriculture, and that became, and then as the railroad diminished, and then Indio became the hub during World War II, and all of that it kind of moved out of the area, and things started to dwindle. And then Mecca became more an area for the people that worked on the farms and had farms, and now it is mostly a bedroom community in a way for people that work in other areas or in agriculture.
Oh, well, so that's kind of how the city developed to be the community is today.
The community it is today, yeah.
That's very interesting. Of the Coachella Valley, I've heard it could have been the Cahuilla Valley, and I also heard that it was at one point the Conchilla Valley. Conchilla as in like the little shells.
Shell, yeah.
Yeah, so
well, we heard that too. That's been a long time story that it was La Conchilla.
La Conchilla Valley.
Shell, and then it morphed into the Coachella Valley.
It's just so interesting.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy. It's a lot of, there's a lot of history out here.
I love reading about just kind of like their passages through Box Canyon, just driving up like this way today. It's just fun to put yourself in that mind frame of just put back in time and having to travel through like mules, carriage. It's so intense.
I'm always telling the kids, I'm always thinking, I'm on that covered wagon. Am I going to make it to the next stop? That's the truth. I know you think, where did they get their what? How did they do this,
I wanted to read a little bit from page 12. It's just Charlie just kind of looking out and just just kind of in love with the desert. A lot of people saw it just kind of dry desert, and he really gave it a second thought. That evening, standing in the open doorway at the rear of the train, Charlie looked across an ocean of gray brush to the naked hills beyond. All day they had been colorless heaps of bare earth, the setting sun now casting a spell over them. Purple, pink, and gold caressed them in a fantasy of color. Hills, sun-scorched all day, now reflected beauty and peace, a peace as real as the scorching heat of the day. The transformation was enchanting, and Charlie made up his mind to hike those hills before breakfast the next morning. How different this country was from his old home in Maine. There, everywhere you looked, trees and dense woodlands to hem you in. Charlie thought he had never seen anything so expansive, a breadth of view only to be equaled on the high seas. The wind rippling through creosote brushes and smokewood trees to mingle with the song of strange birds was music to Charlie's ears. Soothing as the purple hills, he knew he could love this strange new country laying here waiting to be developed. That's such like a good little glimpse
of the vision.
Of the vision, just the overall theme of the story.
Absolutely.
It's beautiful.
It is beautiful, and how appreciated something that to other people's eyes might be just gray.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, desert. What did he see in the desert? And he saw all the colors.
He had a
desert.
vision. He had a vision,
Yeah.
and it was just like he said, waiting there to be developed, which
he developed. Yeah.
which he did, which
Yeah.
is amazing.
And it is.
So, can you tell me a little bit, Margit, about what inspired you to reissue and get this book back out there after so many years?
You know what? My mom, she always said, oh, Nevada. And then Nevada wrote the book. And she was so thrilled with the book and that she knew Nevada. And yet we couldn't find it anywhere. And I know at one time, many years ago, I'd asked Nevada, I think, about it. Was she going to, produce one? No, it wasn't. And then she passed. And then I asked her sons if there was a possibility that I could go ahead and have it reprinted, just because I think it would be valuable to the history of the area. And it's hard to come by,
Mm-hmm.
And so they wrote me and said, absolutely, it would be wonderful to do that, if you choose to do it. But the family was so generous to allow me to republish it, and happy because she was my mother's friend, and she was always so proud of Nevada. And they were both these women in two distinct different places and kind of living a harsh life, a hard life.
And they got through it.
And they both were wonderful mothers and wonderful teammates, and both made their mark.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
amazing. We'll put out a flyer, let you guys know when we can get that out and in circulation for you guys as well. Anything else you would like to discuss? Maybe could we talk about Chiriaco a little bit?
Oh, well.
Let's talk about your family now.
Well, we're long-time residents here, too. My dad came in the 20s, and my mother, and they established Chiriaco in 1933, August 15th, 1933. Hottest day of the year, always. Anyway, but we've been here ever since, serving the public. We did write a book. Dr. Gordon wrote this book about Chiriaco, and it's a wonderful book. It talks about my parents. It talks about the water issues. It talks about World War II and General Patton and all kinds of things that happened. And of course, our family and our dynamics and how, now we're into our fourth generation here in the business. Wow. and continuing so. And it's been an interesting, journey, let's say, and we love it. And we love our desert. We see the colors too.
We see the
colors of the desert. So
that's beautiful. Okay.
Thank you for allowing me to share.
Mecca Library, that's it for us. Thank you to Margit Chiriaco for having us and discussing this book, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.
Thank you.